Rehearsal dinner was my idea. I know that sounds insane now. But back then, I thought if I just kept showing up, kept doing the things nobody else would do, maybe eventually my family would see me the way I saw them. Worth it. Worth fighting for. My sister Adrienne was getting married in June. Her fiancé, Todd, came from money, but not the kind that actually pays for things. His parents had already told everyone they were contributing to the wedding, which turned out to mean they bought a card box and a guest book. My parents didn't have the savings. My brother had just had his second kid and was barely keeping his head above water. And Adrienne had been a lifestyle content creator for 3 years and had never once in those 3 years made enough money to cover her own car insurance. So it fell to me. I'm a pediatric occupational therapist. I work 40 hours a week. I drive a 2019 Corolla with a busted passenger side sun visor, and I have a studio apartment in Charlotte that I actually like, small as it is. I'm not rich, but I'm responsible. I have a savings account and I use it, and somehow in my family, that translated to, she can handle it. The rehearsal dinner was $4,200. I put it on my credit card and told myself I'd pay it off in 3 months. Then my mom called and said the florist had a minimum order my parents couldn't meet. Could I just cover the difference? Just $600, she'd pay me back. Then Adrienne's dress alterations ran over because she'd changed her mind twice about the neckline, and the shop charged for every revision. And somehow, I was writing that check too. Then the photographer wanted a bigger deposit because the date was close, and my dad said, "Well, you know how tight things are right now." And I said, "Yes, I know," and I paid it. By the week of the wedding, I had put in just under $19,000. My name was not on the invitations. My name was not in the program. When Todd's mother stood up at the rehearsal dinner and gave a toast about the two families coming together, she talked about Todd's family, and she talked about my parents, and she looked right past me like I was part of the catering staff. I told myself it was fine. It was Adrienne's day. It wasn't about me. The wedding was on a Saturday. The venue was a converted farmhouse outside Asheville. My idea, actually, I'd found it. I'd emailed the coordinator. I'd handled the deposit. It was genuinely beautiful. String lights over the barn, wildflowers everywhere, a bluegrass trio during cocktail hour. 212 guests. Open bar. I was a bridesmaid, which meant I'd also paid $340 for a sage green dress that I will never wear again. The ceremony went fine. Adrienne cried, which she'd said she wouldn't do, and Todd looked at her like she was the only person in the room. And I stood there in my sage green dress, holding a bouquet of white ranunculus, and I thought, okay, this is worth it. She's happy. That's enough. I believed that for about 4 more hours. The reception was when it fell apart. We were between dinner and the cake cutting. That loose window of time when people drift around with their wine glasses and the DJ plays something everyone half knows. I was at a table with my college roommate, who'd come as my +1, and my aunt on my dad's side, who I hadn't seen in 2 years. It felt almost normal. I was almost relaxed. Adrienne came over with 2 of her friends from her influencer world. Women I'd met once, maybe twice, who had that particular quality of looking at you while also looking past you for someone more interesting. She was glowing. She'd done a full content shoot that morning, had her videographer following her around all day for a wedding vlog, and she was performing happiness the way she performed everything. Loudly, for an audience. "This is my sister," she said, and there was something in her voice I didn't catch in time. A setup I didn't see coming. One of her friends said, "Oh, is this the one who..." And Adrienne laughed and said, "Yes, this is her. The one who has to be involved in everything." I went still. "She literally planned my whole wedding," Adrienne said, and she said it the way you'd say someone had followed you home. Every vendor, every detail. I tell her she didn't have to, and she'd just keep going. She smiled at me, that particular smile that looks like warmth if you're not paying attention. Some people just need to feel needed, I guess. Her friend laughed. The other one made a sympathetic face. My college roommate made a sound next to me. My aunt put her wine glass down. I didn't say anything. I just looked at my sister, at this woman I had spent $19,000 on in the past 4 months, who I had fielded calls from at 11 at night about Centerpiece Heights and seating chart drama, and whether the cocktail hour appetizers should include a gluten-free option. And I thought about all the times I had told her it was no trouble. All the times I'd had told her it was no trouble. All the times I'd meant it. "You're right," I said. "I did plan your whole wedding." And then I picked up my phone. Adrienne watched me. "What are you doing?" I didn't answer right away. I went to my banking app. I went to the pending transaction I had set up 3 days earlier, the final payment to the venue coordinator, $3,800 scheduled to process Monday morning. I had the coordinator's number. I had her email. I had been meticulous about every single piece of this. I canceled it. Then I opened my email and forwarded the venue's payment confirmation, the one with my name, my card, my account, Adrian's personal email address, and to Todd's. I just sent you something, I said. She looked at her phone. I watched the smile go somewhere it couldn't come back from. What is this? The final venue payment, I said. It's due Monday. It's in your name now. You can't. She looked up. The performance was gone. You can't do that. We have guests here. This is my wedding. The wedding's over, I said. Today was the wedding. The wedding's over, I said. Today was the wedding. Monday is a bill. Todd's mother was nearby. I don't think she'd heard everything, but she'd heard enough, because she was moving toward us with that particular energy of a woman who has managed social disasters before. My dad was across the room, and he was looking at me with an expression I'd never seen on him. Not anger, exactly. Something closer to recognition. Adrian said, quietly with her teeth together, "You're doing this because you're jealous." And I almost laughed. I genuinely almost laughed, because I had thought about jealousy over the years. I'd held it up and examined it, the way you do when someone accuses you of a thing and you want to be honest with yourself. And every time I'd looked at Adrian's life, the inconsistent income, the comments section she managed like a second job, the way she needed every room to confirm she was the most interesting person in it, I had not felt jealous. I had felt tired. "I'm not jealous of you," I said. "I'm tired of paying for you." I picked up my clutch and I walked back to the table where my college roommate was sitting with very wide eyes, and I sat down, and I drank the rest of my water, and I did not cry. What happened next came in pieces, the way things do when a social situation starts to unravel at a formal event. There's a particular etiquette to falling apart in public. People drift away. Voices drop. Someone makes a practical decision, and everyone else follows it. Todd pulled Adrian aside. I could see them near the bar. Todd doing most of the talking, Adrian shaking her head. His body language was the kind that people use when they are being reasonable at someone who doesn't want to be reasoned with. My mom came to find me. She sat down across from me and folded her hands on the table and said in a very controlled voice, "Do you understand what you just did?" "I transferred a payment into Adrian's name," I said. "The venue coordinator has all of my contact information. I'll let her know tomorrow that Adrian will be handling the final balance. This is her wedding day." "The ceremony was this afternoon," I said. "It was beautiful. I'm happy for her." My mom looked at me for a long time. She had a certain expression she used when she was deciding whether to be hurt or angry, and I could see her working through it. "You've always had to make things about yourself," she said. And there it was, the thing that had been waiting underneath everything for years, finally out in the open where I could see it clearly. "Okay," I said. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I had explained so many times, had laid out calmly and carefully every receipt and every hour and everything I'd done, and it had never changed the shape of how they saw me. So I just said okay. And I meant it. And I let her walk away. My aunt, the one on my dad's side, had been sitting 2 seats down. She was a woman in her 60s who had raised 3 kids mostly on her own after her divorce, and who had very little patience for what she called family theater. She had been watching the whole thing. "Your mother has always done that," she said. "Made the person doing the work feel like the problem." I looked at her. "Your grandmother did it to her," she said. "She doesn't even know she's doing it." It was the most my aunt had ever said to me about my family in one breath. I didn't know what to do with it, so I just nodded. "You did the right thing," she said. "Tonight. And probably for the first time in a long time." I cried in the parking lot. Not at anything in particular. Not at anything in particular. Not at Nidreen. Not at my mom. Not at $19,000 or a sage green dress. I cried because my aunt had said I did the right thing, and I hadn't realized until she said it how much I'd needed someone to say it. My college roommate stood next to me and didn't say anything, which was exactly correct. The drive home was 2 hours. I stopped once for gas and a bad coffee, and I thought about the venue coordinator, a woman named Asha who had been genuinely excellent and did not deserve to be caught in any of this. I drafted a text to her that night explaining the situation professionally, that the remaining balance would need to be arranged directly with the couple, and that I was sorry for any inconvenience. She replied the next morning with 3 words, "Understood. Thank you." The calls started Sunday. My mom called twice. My dad called once and didn't leave a message, which was its own message. Adrian sent a series of texts that went from furious to pleading to furious again over the course of about 90 minutes. Todd sent one text, just to me, that said, "I didn't know how much you'd covered. I'm sorry. We'll take care of the venue. I appreciated that." I didn't respond, but I appreciated it. What I didn't expect was the call from my dad's brother, my uncle, who I had not spoken to in over a year, who lived in Colorado and worked in construction, and who I had always assumed existed on a separate channel from the family drama entirely. He called Sunday afternoon. "Your dad told me what happened," he said. I waited. "He told it the way he tells things," my uncle said. "So I'm guessing I got about half the story. You want to fill in the rest." So I did. I told him everything. The $1,400 rehearsal dinner, the florist minimum, the dress alterations, the photographer deposit, the total. I told him about the parking lot conversation and my mom's face and Adrian saying I needed to feel needed. He was quiet for a moment. "You know your parents borrowed money from my parents 30 years ago," he said. "Never paid it back. Your grandparents died thinking it was a gift." I hadn't known that. "Your dad knows how to let things slide off him," he said. I used to think that was a strength. I don't anymore. I didn't know what to say, so I said, "I'm not going to get the money back, am I?" "Probably not," he said. "I'm sorry. That's real money." "It is," I said. "You going to be okay?" I thought about my studio apartment, my 2019 Corolla with the busted sun visor, my savings account that was now significantly thinner than it had been 4 months ago. I thought about the fact that I hadn't taken a real vacation in 2 years because I kept moving money around to cover things that weren't mine. Eventually, I said, "Good," he said. "Don't let them do it again." I want to tell you that after that phone call, everything became simple. That I sent one clear message to my family, set a boundary, and everyone respected it, and we moved into a new era of honest relationships. That's not what happened. What happened is that it got messier before it got quieter. My mom and I didn't speak for 6 weeks. Adrian posted her wedding vlog 2 weeks after the wedding, 22 minutes of curated golden hour footage, a voiceover about the most magical day, a section where she talked about how our family really came together to make it happen. No mention of who paid for what. It got 40,000 views. The comments were full of people telling her it was beautiful. I watched the whole thing. I'm not sure why. Maybe I wanted to see if I was in it. I wasn't, except for 2 seconds of background footage during the cocktail hour, where you can see the back of my head. My dad called a month after the wedding. Not to talk about the money. He never talked about the money. He called to tell me my mom was having some trouble with her knee, and they were looking at a possible procedure in the fall. Did I know anything about that kind of thing? It was the closest he'd ever gotten to asking me for something directly, and I think it was the closest he'd ever gotten to saying he was glad I existed. I told him what I knew about knee procedures. I told him to make sure she saw a good ortho and not just the first one her GP referred her to. He said he would. Before he hung up, he said, "You're a good kid, you know that?" And I said, "I know, Dad." I meant it both ways. There's a version of this story where I end with a lesson, where I say, I learned to set boundaries. I found my self-worth. I stopped letting my family define me. And some of that is true. I did stop transferring money into Adrian's account. I did have a conversation with my mom, eventually, that was more honest than any conversation we'd had in years. I did start a separate savings account that I told no one about, but I also still call my dad on Sunday evenings. I still send my mom a card on her birthday. I still think about Adrian sometimes. Not with anger, exactly, but with something sadder and more complicated than anger. I think about the sister she was when we were kids, before she figured out that being the interesting one required an audience and an ATM. I don't know if she's happy. Her follower count went up after the wedding vlog. She got a brand deal with a kitchenware company. Todd's family threw them a housewarming party, and I saw the pictures on Instagram. A nice house, a big kitchen, a coffee table I recognized from a West Elm catalog. I have no idea who paid for it. What I know is this. The morning after the wedding, I woke up in my studio apartment, and the first thought I had was not about the money. It was about how quiet it was. My phone wasn't buzzing with vendor confirmations and catering questions and last-minute panics. Nobody needed anything from me that day. I made coffee. I sat by my one good window that gets morning light. I had nowhere to be and nothing to fix and nobody to keep afloat. It felt, honestly, like exhaling for the first time in months. I keep that morning in my head like a photograph, not because it was dramatic or triumphant. It wasn't. It was just quiet. It was just mine. Some things take a long time to understand. That you're not helping people when you cover for them. You're just making it easier for them to keep being the version of themselves that needs covering for. That love isn't a transaction, but some people will treat it like one if you let them. That the most honest thing you can do for a family that has made a habit of taking from you is to stop being so easy to take from. I'm still learning that. Some days I'm better at it than others, but I don't regret that Saturday in June. I don't regret the look on Adrian's face when she opened that email, or the fact that Todd paid the venue coordinator on Monday morning with his own card. I don't regret sitting in the parking lot while my college roommate stood quietly next to me. I don't regret my uncle calling from Colorado to tell me not to let them do it again. And I especially don't regret my aunt's voice cutting through the noise at that table saying, "You did the right thing." I just wish someone had said it sooner. I've thought a lot about why it took me so long. Not the money. I understand the money. When you grow up in a family where being responsible is treated like a personality flaw you have to compensate for, you learn early that the cost of belonging is just quietly covering things. You do it so many times it stops feeling like a choice. It becomes the water you swim in. What I've had a harder time explaining is the moment at the reception when Adrian said what she said, and my first instinct wasn't anger. It was embarrassment. Like I'd been caught doing something wrong. That's the part that stayed with me long after the venue was paid and the phone calls stopped and the wedding vlog got its 40,000 views. You don't get to that kind of embarrassment by accident. It takes years of being taught, in small and large ways, that your value is functional, that what you contribute is expected, and what you need is inconvenient. I didn't learn that lesson once. I learned it over and over until I believed it. The thing about Adrian isn't that she's a bad person. I don't actually think she is. I think she learned a different lesson in the same house. That she was the one worth centering. That the people around her existed to make her story better. Neither of us chose those lessons. But at some point, you're old enough that you stop being a kid absorbing your environment, and you start being an adult responsible for what you do with what you absorbed. That's the part that matters. Not what happened to you. What you decide to do once you can see it clearly. I saw it clearly that Saturday night. Not for the first time. I'd had glimpses before. Moments where I'd thought something here isn't right and then talked myself out of it. But in that moment, with Adrian performing my existence as a punchline for her influencer friends, something in me just stopped arguing with itself. What I did with my phone wasn't revenge. I want to be honest about that. It was a boundary with a receipt. It was me deciding, finally, that I was not going to keep funding a version of my family that didn't include me as a real person. The consequences followed from the action, the way they always do when you stop absorbing something that was always meant to cost you. My mom was angry. My dad was quiet in that particular way. That means he understood more than he said. Adrian's vlog went up and the world kept spinning, and I was a 2-second blur in the background of someone else's highlight reel. And my uncle called from Colorado and told me not to let them do it again. That's the thing I keep coming back to. Not the drama of the reception, not the canceled payment, not even the money. It's that voice on the phone saying, "You did the right thing. Don't let them do it again." Because that's the whole instruction, isn't it? See clearly. Act accordingly. Don't go back to sleep. I'm still learning that. I probably will be for a while. But I'm learning it with a savings account nobody knows about, and a quiet Sunday morning that belongs entirely to me, and that feels like a start.